love for education, and we greatly benefit by his presence every time in our program, and we don't want to miss it. And its energy is contagious. I have small uh, brief biodata to read, although it may not be required. You can go through the Wikipedia. It gives you a detail of all the kind of activities he has taken up, which are legendary and which are unique in its approach for our Indian context. He is a computer scientist, an academician, a recipient of Padma Shri Award for his contribution to science and technology, awarded in 2013. He is known for his notable work for upgrading Akash. Way back in 2009, he was ranked among the most powerful people in India among 50. Professor Phatak obtained his bachelor's in electrical engineering and MTech and PhD from IIT Bombay. And since 1971, he is faculty there, continuing as emeritus as of now. So Phatak has developed many projects, including aircraft maintenance, training simulator, the development of smart car technology, the surveillance system for SEBI, Eklavya project, very famous, and many of the outreach programs I know, T10 KT and other ones, and of course, indigenous development of a clicker device, which is useful for the audience. So Professor Phatak is recipient of many awards, including Fellow of the Computer Society of India, Fellow of IETE, and Lifetime Awards, Achievement Awards from many of the institutions. Scotch Foundation is one, DataQuest second, IIT Bombay in 2014 third, and by Interop that way. So we welcome Professor Phatak Sahab, and before I hand over to him to address us this benign morning, I have two or three slides to show about the progress of academies, the way we are proceeding for academy that way. I think my slides are stuck up, but I'll just try again. I think my slides are not advancing, so I have to do something here. Oh, they are not advancing actually. Let me see.
You should stop sharing and share again, perhaps that will work.
I'm doing, sir. I'm doing that only. I think I just have to, without slides, I think I will continue. And just surprise you that as 7 academies, which are 3 at IITs, 3 at NITs, and 1 at IIT DM Jabalpur, we are offering many of the programs jointly also. And we are attended by a large number of participants, and of course contributed by many eminent speakers. Thanks to them in advance for this program and for coming programs. We have a calendar for next 6 months till June 2026. Please look at our website. This is one of the program in that sense, and we usually offer programs in electronics, system design, manufacturing, ITES fields, along with something on leadership, pedagogy, and human values programs also. So I think I will just take rest that way. Again, thanking Professor Phatak Saab and welcoming him to this stage to address us for 2-3 minutes. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, you
Thank
are
you so
muted
much.
possibly. Sir.
Thank you so much, Vinay.
Sir.
So, my dear participants, I am actually thrilled to once again make an appearance on this program. In old times, Professor Vinit Saula used to keep me busy, and now it is Professor Ravi who is leading the charge with more additional work created for me, which I was very happy to do. I had given a talk on something what I consider as very basics in manuscript authoring and review. Uh, but when I was asked to speak to all of you again on the same topic, apart from keeping the main points of my earlier presentation, I have added the dimension of artificial intelligence. As you know, AI and ML is pervading every walk of life, including assistance in preparation for manuals and proposals. So I have that new addition, and I hope you will enjoy this talk as much. Although there will be some repetition, but I presume that the uh, participants would not have been there 4 years ago. So for them, perhaps most of the contents which I deliberate on will be new. Can I begin, Professor Ravi?
Yes, sir. Or you can have a break and start. It's up to you, sir.
Okay. So maybe at 9:30 we can start.
Yes, sir.
So once again, thank you very much, Professor Ravi and Professor Vinit, for giving me this opportunity. Uh, I have learned a lot in last 24 hours, thanks to the opportunity that I get to interact with. We'll meet again at 9:30. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So this concludes our inaugural session. We'll have the first keynote at 9:30 a.m. by Professor D.B. Phatak.
Can we start,
Ravi?
Mr. Ravi?
Yes, sir. You can start, sir.
May we record, sir?
Yeah, please.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Are
Thank you,
my
sir.
slides visible?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Sir, visible. Thank you, sir.
All right. So a very good morning to all the participants of this program. While we are going to discuss a whole lot on the available tools for both authoring and reviewing manuscripts and proposals in the coming days, I thought in this keynote of mine, I will address some very basic issues which are perhaps not necessarily covered in details in the later sessions. The topic that I have chosen to speak on is deliberately written as in search of quality, because whatever we do, we perpetually attempt to enhance the quality of our work. It is in this context that I begin with some general observations. First of all, it is well known that the scientific literature has been growing exponentially, and perhaps publish or perish mentality is one of the root causes. Whatever be the reasons, each one of us attempts to write and present our work either as a research paper or we write proposals for research funding. Mastery of tools and techniques, therefore, is a must. However, number one, we should be concerned about the value addition that we do. And number two, this can happen only through quality enhancement. So we need to appreciate the basic quality factors which go into preparation and review of manuscripts. I call this a quality elephant, by the way, in our manuscript rules. So how do you define quality? How do you define quality in technical literature? How do you define quality of any single document that you come across? How do I define quality of my manuscript? These are the fundamental questions that I need to answer. Having answered these, the next question would be, how do I improve quality? Obviously, I must first identify all quality parameters and improve on each parameter. I got muted suddenly.
सर एक बार क्लिक कर दीजिए, एरो एरो क्लिक कर दीजिए, कीबोर्ड एरो.
Yeah. Am I audible again?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So I begin by rediscussing some quality parameter definitions. All of you will be aware of this, so perhaps for most of you, this will be a repetition. First and foremost, whatever technical or scientific literature we come across, one parameter of quality is the value added to human knowledge. Please note that every research work that we publish could either be a fundamental work or it could be incremental. In fact, fundamental work happens very rarely, once in a while. It is the incremental work that most of us are doing based on some idea which either we have initiated or somebody else has started with, and we keep refining this and adding value to it. So both are very important. Don't neglect one or the other. Second purpose of writing any technical literature is to simplify and explain knowledge. So this is where we come across books, notes, or monographs, edited collections. All of these actually attempt to simplify and explain knowledge. Research papers, on the other hand, are often considered a bit more difficult to understand and appreciate because they are cryptic, because they deal with very specific domain and they deal with a whole lot of technical details. However, it is important to ensure that we simplify and explain knowledge even in our research papers adequately, so that becomes one of the quality parameters. Needless to add, the acceptability and actual usage of our published work will depend upon how simple and easy to understand the work is. Whether it is technical papers or whether they are research proposals. Another quality parameter of a publication is the impact factor. So what do? We generally use top journals or conferences. It is not easy to publish them. By the way, I do not know whether your institutions follow this or not, but in my institute, every department is required to maintain the list of top journals and conferences where colleagues are encouraged to send their publications. It is not that publications will not be sent to other journals and other conferences, but identification of top journals and conferences and visible identification for all concerned in an institution is, I believe, a very important step. Now I come to the quality of a single article. It depends upon where it is published naturally, depends upon what it is all about. Does it extend knowledge? And to what extent does it extend knowledge? And last but not the least, is it easy to understand and use? Same thing applies to the quality of a funding proposal also. All of these things are a must in any funding proposal. But more importantly, a funding proposal must provide all the necessary details. And these details must be provided in terms of their understanding by the persons to whom we are addressing the funding proposal. We write a proposal and it might be very obvious to us that everything is crystal clear. But we must put ourselves into the shoes of the people who are going to look at this proposal, discuss it, and then decide on whether to fund us or not. And it is from their angle that we must ensure the quality in terms of providing all the details. So let me come back to the quality of my manuscript. First and foremost, have I defined the problem properly? What does my manuscript talk about? Does it extend knowledge? Equally important, have I done enough relevant work? Now here, we ourselves are the judge, whether there is adequate work for the research paper that we are sending for publication. In this context, I must ensure that I have collected and quoted appropriate references, especially those which are close to my work. Last but not the least, is its look likable and enjoyable? Does it avoid a jarring impact on anybody who reads it? I'll spend some time on the likable and enjoyable look, as I learned it long time ago. This happens because the problems are peculiar to us, by the way. We as Indians specialize in talking a lot, we read less, and we rarely write. For example, our history is written by others. We are not used to writing diaries, and therefore, writing something has to occur in a specific context for us. Our writing approach remains basically a bit shallow as compared to the writing approach adopted by other people in the world. When we write, for example, we are not careful about what and how we write. And most important, we often do not spend time in iterative modifications or iterative corrections. We write it once, probably we read it once, and we are happy, we believe that everything is done. But there is a huge merit in iterative modifications, as I will explain later through some anecdote. One of the tips I would like to give you is that content and form both are important. These two are not mutually exclusive. Quality of manuscript is defined by both. Why I mention this is because most often we concentrate on the content. We are very keen that the content be right and correctly reprinted. That is important. But the form in which we present is also equally important, because manuscript is finally an articulation of our work. So two important things. Poor content cannot be articulated well, howsoever you. Similarly, poor articulation will cast a dark shadow even if the content is good. So content and its articulation or its visibility must also be equally important. I would refer to some basic points regarding PhD. Many people regard PhD as a degree. So we have people who are research scholars doing PhD. We have people who are pursuing their postdoctoral activities. We are then researchers who have finished their PhD and guiding others in research. But what all of us often forget is that PhD is not about a degree, but it's about a mindset. It is a mindset which is full of spirit of inquiry, which therefore is full of curiosity. That is the mindset that defines a sort of PhD or a research. Ability to do in-depth analysis is important. Similarly, synthesis or experimentation has to be performed very rigorously. So rigor in everything that we do is important. The next line I have written in bold: perfect written and verbal articulation. Whether we are presenting a research paper in a conference or whether we are presenting a proposal for funding, our verbal articulation is equally important. Needless to add, the written articulation itself must be at its best. PhD also PhD mindset is also concerned with innovation and new idea. And most important, perseverance and hard work. Perseverance is never to give up. Because while we do things, there will be failures, there will be ups and downs, etc. We must not be deterred by that, but we must continue to focus our attention on work and more work and more. And that is why I have said hard work. I would like to add here, not just hard work, but hard and smart work. Both are required. Finally, what I learned from my guru and others, all of you must be familiar with this. PhD is not to be considered end of research, but it's the beginning of research. So you are proceeding on a research career. This is the basic of all the manuscript writing that we shall do in our lifetime, starting with the basic idea of research. Let me come back to the quality of my manuscript. As I mentioned earlier, the quality of my manuscript cannot exceed the quality of the underlying research. Therefore, before starting the manuscript writing, I must examine whether I have fully explored the underlying research ideas or not. Second, whether I have verified and validated the results if I am indulging in any experimental. Third, I must ensure that my ideas and the results that I present add value to the field. And last but not the least, I must collate and list all the references properly. There is a temptation that we have some area in which we have done a lot of work, but we actually keep slicing that work and presenting papers. This happens because the need is to publish a large number of acceptable papers. But my advice will be, such people, by the way, are called salami slicer. I call them in Hindi as jalebi makers. You have only one sort of material, and from which you keep making small jalebi, bigger jalebi, etc., etc. So don't become jalebi cars or jalebi makers. You have a good material, produce one good jalebi only. For another jalebi, you must have a new material. About the form, let me share with you a few anecdotes which will explain how I learned the hard way things which are relevant for the quality parameter that I mentioned. First anecdote is about my guru who asked me to do a mundane activity. I'll elaborate that a bit because it talks about the quality of appearance. The second and third is about a simple goof in preparing a summary for a selection interview that I appeared. This is a mistake I made. And also the third one is when my friend Kanwal Rekhi, who helped us set up the School of Information Technology in IIT, was visiting us and was visiting a poster session done by the researchers in the school. So the reaction to a poster presentation session, this will also tell us about the nature and kind of value that we need to add in our conversation. First, improving the look. So this is a story of my first IEEE paper, written some 50 years ago. I was terribly overjoyed that my paper was accepted. I received at that time a 2-column template to prepare camera-ready copy. Please note, I'm talking about days when there were no word processors. The computing was in its infancy from today's point of view. So we had to actually type the research papers. And to type it properly, we had to prepare camera-ready copies. So my guru, Professor Kekre, asked me to get a draft type. So I drew 2 columns on a blank sheet, copying the original I had received, and got the draft right on these sheets. And my guru rejected the draft. Because look at the draft. This may not be readable. You can read this later. I have actually written the entire episode. The point I'm making is that the material which I had typed was not aligned properly on both sides of the ball. This is something which we naturally get whenever we use any modern word processor. But those were the days when things had to be typed. What my guide wanted was like this. So I had to type things such that both sides of every line are properly aligned to the boundary. Now, please remember, there's no word processor then. I'm using a typewriter. This is how my manuscript looked like. I was about to embark on getting my manuscript, etc. Now, my guide wanted me to justify every line on both sides. How do I justify text on a typewriter? So, he told me the following. He said, count the number of spaces at the end of every line. So 8 here, 3 here, 2 here, 1 here, 7 here. This is manual work, by the way. I have typed the entire manuscript, and now I have to count the number of spaces on the right. Then he said, mark places for adding extra space between the words of the sentence or part of the line that I see. So, for example, there are 2 spaces to be added, so I should add 1 here and 1 here. 1 space is to be added, I should add it here. And then I should retype, telling my typist that whenever he types and blank said, he should insert 1 more blank, not just 1 but 2 blanks here. But that was tough work. But this tough work had to be done. And my guru was satisfied only when I had done this. Most of you will laugh at this particular example because it doesn't concern any one of us today. Whatever we type, the modern tools automatically justify it on both sides. But I deliberately picked up this example to tell you that no matter what tools you use, quality enhancement on the look of the content remains important, and we must therefore be very, very careful. For example, what font size do we choose? Many of the times, the font and font size, etc., is prescribed by the publication to which we are, by the publishing journal or conference which we are sending our paper to. But even then, it is important for us to ensure that not just the content, but even the look of the paper that we send or the manuscript that we send is actually of good quality. I will share a couple of more anecdotes as I mentioned. Like most of us appear for interviews to selection committee for a promotion, one of the selection committees. I had prepared a summary of 1 page and circulated to all concerned. And inadvertently, while typing that summary, the word career, which I wanted to use, had become carrier. I didn't realize it, but I found one of the senior experts looking at the line, smiling and showing that paper to the neighbor, smiling, say, underline that word. And I immediately realized what happened. So he looked at me and said, "So, Dr. Phatak, you want to carry your career like this or what?" And I could not help but smile. But you see, I was lucky that the selection committee member took this small mistake in his stride. But he could have made an opinion that, look, this gentleman is not very keen to check and cross check everything that he writes and could have adversely affected my interview. Same thing happens in our normal conversation. As I was telling you, Kanwal Rekhi was visiting the School of IT after it was established, and the first batch of MTech and PhD students had prepared a poster session where they were presenting their research work. So one page large poster was pasted on a pedestal, and they were all showing around. And Kanwal Rekhi was going from one place to another, etc., etc. One particular paper which was describing some technical jargon, he asked the question, "What problem are you solving?" The research scholar, who was so engrossed in his own work that he simply repeated the technical response covering his paper details. Kanwal Rekhi just asked him one question. "This is all right. I don't understand much of it. But what I want to know is, what problem are you solving, or what problem will your work help in solving?" Why I consider this important is many times when we prepare our manuscripts, we often forget that, particularly in any incremental research, we are actually assisting a existing large technical problem and its various dimensions. And we are looking at a particular dimension of that technical problem and detailing. However, we must not forget what was the basic purpose for which that technical problem arose. And somewhere in our manuscript, there should be a line stating that this is the major problem faced by humanity. This problem is to be solved in multiple facets. One of the solution approaches uses this, and what we have done, what I have done, adds some value to this particular problem. So I believe this question is important. What problem are you solving should be answered by us in any manuscript that we have. Let me spend a few minutes on funding proposals. I had an occasion uh, where my colleague, Professor Mrs. Parekh, who used to be she was a senior professor in mechanical engineering department. Incidentally, Professor Mrs. Parekh was an expert in IC engines, and she had done tremendous amount of work. Most of you would now be routinely seeing the taxis plying with CNG gas, which is used as a fuel to the internal combustion engine. The basic work of this conversion was started by her. She has really made great contribution. Obviously, in all her research work, like any one of us, she would require some funding support. And she had written a proposal to the funding agency in Delhi, asking for some amount, which was very large at that time, about I think 6 or 8 crore rupees is what she wanted. And for a long time, there was no response from the funding agency. They would neither reject the proposal nor approve it. And she was desperately waiting, because based on that funding approval, much of her new research activities, including new equipment that she had to fabricate or purchase, was to come. So I was known to frequently visit Delhi for many of the projects that I was doing with the ministry. And she asked me, "Phatak, this is a copy of the proposal. It is pending with such and such funding agency. In your next visit to Delhi, will you please talk to them?" I looked at that proposal. It was a 3 or 4 page proposal. I was a bit concerned as to why this proposal is so short, but anyway, since she was well known, I went to the funding agency and started discussing. So that fellow smiled and said, Professor Phatak, for such a large sum as 8 crore rupees, how do you justify just a skimpy 4-page proposal? Now, I had to defend her proposal, so I said, but Professor Parikh has written all the details, given all the requisite information. He says, no, she should have given many more details. Then he showed me as an example the funding proposals received by others, received from others, and which were looked at by his staff and officers. He showed me a proposal which was merely for 75 lakh rupees. It was a 25-page proposal, clearly outlining the details of the work to be done, outlining the equipment that was to be procured, sample quotations from the prospective suppliers of the equipment, everything. And he told me, look, Professor Phatak, for a 75 lakh proposal, my staff and officers are used to seeing a 25-page proposal which gives all the details. So obviously they are a bit hesitant in supporting this. I smiled and said, I am very sure that Professor Parikh would have worked out all the details. In frustration, he said, but then why didn't she send these details to us? I said, all right, don't worry, you'll get the details. Then I came back and told Mrs. Parikh that the problem with the funding agency is that your proposal is too brief. She smiled and she said, what do they want me to do? So I said, they want a larger proposal with greater detail. Then she told me, Patek, I have about 100 pages of annexures ready, describing in detail the kind of lab setup I'm going to do, describing in detail the kind of equipment that I need to purchase, describing in detail the equipment which cannot be purchased, but I will have to fabricate everything. And I said, Madam, then why don't you send those 100 pages? She said, it will be too bulky. I said, they love bulk. The funding proposal handling agencies, they love bulk of information because that is how they operate. They want to ensure that all details are in place before approving anything. They are actually safeguarding themselves. She smiled and she said, okay. She sent those 100 pages as properly marked annexures and wrote to the funding agency that from the feedback received from Professor Phatak, I understand that you need more details about the work that I propose to do so that my funding can be considered. And here are the details. Within a week, she got the proposal. Why I mention this is, don't be stingy on the proposal that you write. Ensure that all details are enclosed. If the proposal becomes too bulky, my advice would be, this is what I have followed myself. I write a 2-page summary for executive perusal. This 2-page summary very clearly abstracts the main points of the proposal, the funding request made, and the justification. That's all. And then the detailed proposal can follow. Here is another experience I had when I proposed a large project, which Professor Vinit Chawla had kindly mentioned, the T10 KT program. Participants would assemble. They are all teachers like us. And then they would be trained on a specific engineering topic. Hello.
Sir, your slides have been off actually because of network possibly.
Slides have gone off, is it?
Yeah, in last half a minute because of network possibly.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
Are the slides visible now?
It's
Yes.
taking time. Yeah, it's visible.
Yes.
Sir. Please.
Yeah, okay.
Please, sir.
Yeah. So we were advised by the ministry that can we expand this and scale it up to train up to 10,000 teachers at a time. This is unthinkable. It was never done earlier. And we worked out that we can scale up because the model that we were using, assembling a few faculty members at a remote center, delivering lectures in the morning from IIT Bombay interactively, including question answers, etc. And in the afternoon, to conduct labs and tutorials locally. So we suggested that we can scale up this model. We thought that we would be required to set up about 350 remote centers. Many of the colleges from which you people come, perhaps, were participants in our 10KT program then. My colleague, Mr. Kannan Moudgalya, prepared a very detailed and elaborate proposal because it was a very large proposal. The proposal was for funding rupees 212 crores to conduct such 15 workshops, training 10,000 teachers at a time, amounting to about 150,000 teachers trained over a period of 3 to 4 years. It was a large proposal. Please note that in those days, there was no online program then, so all programs had to be done in person. So people, 50 to 100 people will assemble at one remote center, which will be connected to us through audio visual means. Morning lectures will be delivered from IIT Bombay, and there was interaction possible from each remote center. So anybody in any center could ask a question, and the question asking person as well as the response given were visible and audible to all the people attending in the remaining 290 or 350 remote centers. So it was essentially like a large simulated classroom with 350 physical extensions. Now, I had a detailed discussion with the ministry. So those of you who are familiar with the ministry structure, there's an IOD, a financial division. And the financial division is deeply concerned when there are large projects. It was, by the way, a 3.5-hour interaction. The first hour was spent in me detailing the proposal once again, presenting a summary to all of them. They had all read the proposal in details, by the way. And they started saying, is it feasible, etc., etc. So I had to tell them that we actually have conducted a trained 10,000 teachers at a time program successfully for 3 years. And we have trained over 15,000 teachers already. And the model is very scalable. So they could not find any fault with the detailed calculations that we had done on setting up the additional remote centers, because each remote center, we were supposed to add some sort of a computing lab, come audio, visual mechanism, etc. at each center. Some funding was essential. And then, of course, large amount of funding was for conducting the actual workshop, where people don't have to stay at new place because I have 350 remote centers all over the country. But people will have to move from their college or place of residence to the remote center place, which could be maybe a 1-hour journey by bus or whatever. So we have to compensate people for that journey. Then we have to arrange for their tea, coffee, food, etc. for the day. And we have to do this for all 15 days or 2-week workshop as we used to conduct. So 10 working days, effectively. Everything was going on smoothly. I was explaining, they were agreeing. And then suddenly one very smart officer said, but Professor Fatah, the cost, I can see the major cost that you are going to spend is on food and eatables of all the participants. I said, yes. Then he says, Government of India has norms which are based on the cities. So depending upon the daily allowance norms that we have, we can sanction only that amount. I told them that, look, food, etc., will have to be arranged at a place where the teachers are assembling together and not at some other place. They can't go out for lunch or dinner, even if lunch or dinner is available at a cheaper rate, because they have to concentrate on the work. Finally, after a lot of discussion, we had to agree that we will cut down these costs as per the Government of India norms. The officers were happy, we were happy. We actually reduced that by about 18 crore rupees or something. about 20 crore rupees, we can say. And the funding was approved. This was the largest funded project. Then I still remember the ministry secretary of higher and technical education told me that was funded 191 crore rupees. We have never sanctioned for a single project so far. It was all because the painstaking work that my colleague Professor Kannan and I had done in preparing the detailed proposal, going through each and every line. In fact, for every table of costs, I remember for every table of costs that were presented in our proposal, Professor Kannan had worked out a calculation sheet, and that additional table he had given to me. We showed more detailed calculations on every particular column of funding that was requested. So with that, it was like a cheat sheet I had. So whenever a question was asked, I could tell them how much is per person cost at this place for this activity, etc., etc., etc. All in all, it took 4 hours of discussion, but I could manage to get the approval for the largest funded project. All of this was possible. Once again, I come back to the basics because the funding proposal has completely adequate details given on every aspect of what we want to do, how do we want to do it, why do we require funding, what that funding will be used for, etc., 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 including the details of the equipment that were to be installed in each of the remote centers. Everything was covered. This detailed coverage, I believe, is absolutely essential. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
hope
You
I'm
are
audible there. I'm very sorry
sure.
for the detail.
No
All
problem,
right.
sir.
So let me go to the next slide. Here, I would like to touch upon the audio and video contents that in future I believe manuscripts may start appearing in. So I titled it as Shape of Things to Come. First and foremost, even the text that we write in our manuscripts, we must ensure that we have web-ready manuscripts with hyperlinks. That is because these links can take us to different sections. They can take us to other relevant documents. Are we all well prepared for making such web-ready manuscripts? For example, do we use web publishing tools? Are we familiar with basic of HTML, style sheets, embedded URLs? These things become very important from this perspective. Now, what about audio and video manuscripts? We have never heard of this because we still have largely a publication system where papers are written in text and published in journals or conferences. There may be a lot of photographs and images, for example, but are we familiar with the image metadata standards such as XF or IPTC or XMP? Do we know that in simple JPEG files, we can actually have keywords that can be embedded and therefore they become easily searchable? Most digital albums today permit us to search on this metadata. We often do not use this feature while even searching images. I will talk more about AI and ML later, but face recognition adds the AI ML flavor to manuscripts which in future shall be written in audio and video form. I wonder how many of us are familiar with .srt files. So they're called. We can extract subtitles as text. We can make them searchable. .srt or subrip files is an open standard, by the way. If you use that, and if you have captured the uh, audio in the text form, I have the capability to go directly to a part of the manuscript. So I might have a video manuscript. I call it a manuscript, although it's a video recording. I have written two references here. First, a lecture by my then colleague, Dr. M. Jayakrishnan. He is now doing great work at IIT Madras. He has given a lecture in which he explains certain things. Now, what he is explaining is converted into text, and the text is visible as he speaks. Now, I can use the .srt file to search the video. So on IIT Bombay X, which was the platform that we used for such video recording, we could actually do this search. There is a link to a YouTube video uh, in which I have commented on how you can directly go to a desired point in a video manuscript by directly clicking on the text that appears. So you can go down the text. A 1 hour video, you can go to 23rd minute exactly, because in 23rd minute, some important point has been made by the speaker. These are features that all of us should be familiar with. This is a small digression, but I make this digression because in coming years, it is possible that the video manuscripts or video recorded lectures could be used by other colleagues. So I might, for example, I'll just give you an example. I have been a good teacher like most of us. Databases is one subject which I teach. I also have a colleague, Professor S. Sudarshan, who is a global guru in databases, and his book we use regularly in our database courses. Obviously, what and how he can teach will always be a shade better than what and how I can teach. I teach from his book, all right, but would it not be nice if I could use the lectures delivered by him as a supplement to my own work? How do I use the lectures delivered by him in my classroom? Should I just play that video and stand like this? That will be nonsense. Here is an example of how such video content are repurposed for the local usage by a trained teacher from a smaller institution. This goes back to times when IIT Bombay offered online courses. One of the courses offered was an animation. A colleague of mine, Dr. Samir Sahasrabuddhe, was conducting that program. This course was being attended by over 2,000 students across the country online, but there were a few colleges in the country where a fairly large number of participants were there, and they all made a request saying that they would like to offer some additional facility to these students from their college who are doing this course. This is what was the beginning of what we call the blended MOOCs, by the way. You may have an online course, but you also may have physical interaction. So we happily said it's perfectly fine. One of those 6 or 7 colleges, from which about 500, 600 students were there, 100 each in every college. There was one college in Rajkot. Rajkot is a district in Gujarat. There were 100 plus students in that online course. There was a local coordinating teacher, of course, in that institution. His name was Professor Kushalwala. He's still there as a teacher in that engineering college. Now, when we have 2,000 students attending a course, blended or online, we have a large number of teaching assistants who keep watching the performance of these students and generally how the course is proceeding. After about 2 weeks, these teaching assistants reported super performance by the students of this Rajkot college. They came and told Professor Samir Sahasrabudhe that, sir, there is something fishy going on in this college because every student has passed each quiz. This had never happened in our course. Even in a concentrated population of 100 students in a college or something, not all will pass all quizzes. Somebody will fail somewhere. Second, the performance of these 100 students was best among the 2000 students. So Samir Sahasrabudhe came to me saying, sir, I feel there is something wishy-washy going on there. So I smiled and said, why don't you visit Rajkot? So he called Professor Kushalwala. Kushalwala told him that, can you come on a Friday evening because Saturday I hold the special session for them. So you can participate in that special session and see what we do. And what he did with the video content was amazing. In that special session on Saturday, Professor Wala began by playing the lecture video. This was a 1 hour lecture recorded by Professor Samir Sahasrabudhe with a long assignment given at the end. This was the standard feature at that point. So Professor Wala started playing the lecture video, but he paused after 5 or 7 minutes at some logical point. And then he did something very different. He explained the entire 5 to 7 video portion in Gujarati to those students. Samir, who was attending the course, was surprised to see that all students took out their notebooks and immediately started scribbling. He was very concerned. So later on, he asked the students that, don't they understand English? One student smiled and said, yes, sir, we understand, but we understand Gujarati better. See the fun. This localization may be absolutely mandatory, particularly in areas where our students are not well versed with English language, which is used as a medium of instruction in most of the recorded manuscripts, which we call video lectures. The next thing Professor Wala did was, after halting after 6 or 7 minutes and explaining everything in Gujarati, he gave the entire class a small problem to solve and made sure that every student had solved the problem correctly, went around, etc. Then he played the video for another 7, 8 minutes up to the next logical point, again halted, again explained in Gujarati, again gave a problem. And he proceeded in this manner the entire lecture. Actually, Professor Samir Sahasrabudhe was observing the entire episode, realized that these small problems which Professor Wala had created and made sure that all students solve those small problems amounted to nothing but preparing the students for the larger assignment which was waiting at the end of the video. The assignment at the end, which was actually given, was solved correctly by all students, not 50%, not 70%, not 80%. Each and every student could solve it. Why? Because Professor Wala had taken the trouble of explaining things in portions, giving smaller problems. So you see, what Professor Wala did was localization, contextualization of the document that he had received. By the way, we decided to call them the blenderers of Rajkot. In his visit to Rajkot, this is Dr. Samir Sahasrabudhe, this is Professor Wala and the entire gang. Many of them actually have made animation as their profession subsequently. But I digress. The point I am trying to make is that in coming days, such video manuscript, such audio manuscript will become the use of the day, and we should be prepared for doing that. Sorry for digression, but I thought this was an important addition, so I decided to spend some time on this. Now I come to what is regarded as the hottest topic today, namely inroads made by artificial intelligence. There is nothing new. All of you would be familiar with AI and ML. Just to briefly recount the history, the term artificial intelligence is not new at all. Alan Turing at that time called it machine intelligence. In 1956, McCarthy coined the term AI. And just to tell you that I used to dabble in signal and image processing in my earlier days in early 70s. And I had come across a book by Duda and Hart published in 73, which described supervised and unsupervised classification. Supervised and unsupervised classification, even till date, forms the basis of a variety of tools that are subsequently developed. The problem those days was data available was very small, storage was extremely costly, processing power was severely limited, and therefore none of these concepts could be actually applied at a large scale. Then came the rule-based expert systems, statistical, natural language processing, and machine learning. So those rule-based systems, expert systems, had to be written specifically. Each system had to be written there. Neural networks, which were known earlier, were revived by a great work done by uh, many people. The major name there is uh, Geoffrey Hinton. He introduced the concept of backpropagation. To those of you who are not involved in neural networks and such thing, the concept of neural networks is there are what you call, uh, oops, sorry.
Sir, we are at 27, slide number 27.
Yeah, yeah. The slide is visible, right?
Visible, sir.
Yeah, okay. So uh, you have neural network. Am I visible, by the way, because I am not able to see myself?
Yes, sir,
Sometimes
you're
it happens by
visible.
the network. You are visible, sir.
Okay, okay. As long as I am visible to you, it's all right. I can see only the slides, but doesn't matter. So as I was telling you, neural network has a lot of vertices. Each vertex represents a certain computing thing. It has a weight associated with. There are edges from these vertices. There are a large number of other vertices in between, and basically you move from one set of vertices to next, etc., etc., calculating the final outcome that you get, calculating also the error. The backpropagation concept means that you actually go back and visit the previous neurons or previous vertices as to where the contribution of error has come. There's a great paper written by him in 1986. Incidentally, I must tell you something more about Geoffrey Hinton. So Geoffrey Hinton, I mean, all his colleagues were of course great, but Geoffrey Hinton was a winner of Turing Award. I don't know how many of you are aware of Turing Award. Turing Award is considered the equivalent Nobel Prize in computer science because computer science has no Nobel laureate. So there have been every year a Turing Award is given to a great scientist. Geoffrey Hinton won it earlier. Out of all the Turing Award winners, only two Turing Award winners have also got subsequently Nobel Prize award also given. Geoffrey Hinton was one of them. So you can see what a great person he was. His concept of backpropagation, although introduced in 1986, the computing power then was still limited. So while deep learning gained providence, you had multi-layered artificial neural networks, and you had more than million parameters for recognizing patterns. But everything was handled by sequential computation on the machine, and therefore huge scales could not be achieved. This went on for the first 15 years of this century, where the computing power became very, very large, much cheaper, and therefore all these ideas of backpropagation could be applied. However, they could be applied only through sequential computation. And then came a great research paper in 2017. This is the famous paper by Vaswani and others. It is simply titled Attention is All You Need. The attention does not refer to human attention, by the way. The attention is actually looking at the previous nodes and looking at the nodes surrounding you. So that is what he means by attention, roughly. I have written down the authors of the paper. What is so important about these authors? All of them were young researchers in Google. So this was a paper not coming out of an academic institution, but coming out of the joint effort of Google researchers at that time. I have highlighted two names here, Ashish Vaswani and Nikki Parmar. You can all guess that they are of Indian origin. Why I have highlighted has one more purpose. Most of us almost always talk of IITs and NITs and how great these institutions are. Of course, these are great institutions. But we must realize that these institutions are not fallen from the sky. They have been created by people like you and me alone. That is first. Second, no matter what your institution is, no matter where you are located, great talent can occur in your institution. Great talent can be nurtured by you in your institution, depending upon how hard and smart work you and the students do. Ashish Vaswani, for example, passed his bachelor's degree from BITS Meshra, not from an IIT or NIT. Nikki Parmar, this young girl, passed her computer science education from an institute called Pune Institute of Computer Technology, a very good institution, but a small institution. So the main purpose of showing the list of these authors and telling you about these two people of Indian origin. Of course, by the way, they could do the great work only when they did their postgraduate education, PhD, and joined Google Research. And Google provided a platform for all such great workers to combine their efforts to prepare this. Incidentally, in 2017, this paper was published, which defined the transformer architecture where parallel processing can be done. By the way, we always are concerned with the citation. So whenever I publish a manuscript somewhere, I'm very keen to know how many times that paper has been cited by others. So number of citation is an important criteria. Do you know how many times this paper has been cited? It was published in 2017. As of 2025, which is less than 8 years, the paper has been cited for more than 1,75,000 times. Such is the importance of this paper. More importantly, within 4 years or 5 years of the publication of this paper, the first version of ChatGPT was released. I think 2021 or 2020. Just in 5 years. The ChatGPT is the first chatbot which is based on the transformer architecture and which was built using the architecture which was proposed in this famous paper. The key innovation, of course, is the self-attention mechanism, parallel processing of sequences, most important, and better modeling of long-range dependencies. So dependencies which are not localized to a particular set of neurons, but in and around everywhere. In short, what we call a large language model or LLM, it can read billions of sentences, it can learn probabilistic patterns, it can predict next word in a sequence. It appears very simplistic, next word in a sequence. But when you are talking about large number of sequences and large number of next words, and thereby helping you to understand the context, because the context is weighed by self-attention. It can adjust parameters through back propagation. This is a very, very short, brief, and perhaps not very adequate summary, but this is the essence of what we see artificial intelligence as today. All of you will be familiar with ChatGPT, right? Incidentally, the full name is Generative Pre-trained Transformer Chatbot. It's a chatbot. The chatbot meaning a robot which can interact with us and can chat with us. All of us would have interacted with chatbot, in fact, with ChatGPT. There is a very interesting story going the rounds in IIT Bombay, for example, that all teachers use ChatGPT to set hard problems for students. All students use ChatGPT to come up with solutions to those problems and submit their final submissions of the problem solution. And then teachers again have to use ChatGPT to actually evaluate those solutions. Jokes apart, asking questions to ChatGPT properly is a bit of a tricky thing. You might have heard the term called uh, what we call prompt engineering, or how to prompt, or how to ask questions correct. So it is less about asking questions, but it is about collaborating with an intelligent assistant. The response that we get from any chatbot, whether it is ChatGPT or Gemini or so many other things, is more precise and is more valuable if our prompt is more specific and structured. For example, if I ask ChatGPT, explain AI briefly, then it will give me a very general description of what artificial intelligence is. But suppose I say, I want to explain artificial intelligence to, say, second year BCom students who are studying commerce, emphasizing finance and accounts, and I would like the presentation to be of about 20 minutes duration, and the tone should be inspirational. Suppose I ask this detailed question, the response I will get will be completely different. Now, this was about the background of AI. Coming to chatbot now, thanks to Professor Vineet and Professor Ravi giving me this opportunity, I thought I will use the chat GPT to do something about our topic today, namely manuscript writing, manuscript correction. Please note that you will be actually studying in this particular course several tools which are AI assisted. And I also did a study on which are the tools which are AI assisted, which are the tools which are fully AI powered, etc., etc. But that is not the point I'm making here. The point I'm making is how you interact with Chat GPT makes a lot of difference. So here is an anecdote I heard recently. I had gone to Aurangabad, and the municipal commissioner was explaining to the audience. There was a very interesting format which they had fixed. Uh, Domain people would come up with problem, and the experts from the industry will attempt to solve the problem. So he was giving an example. He said he received a letter requesting leave for one day. Now, just the previous week, Mr. Srikanth had actually explained to all his officers and workers on how to use Chat GPT to ask questions and get answers and so on. When he received the letter requesting, it was later written in very correct English, very beautifully written. So he thought it must be from some senior officer, because such a correct English he had not come across. And finally, at the bottom, he found out the person who had signed that had written he was a sewage worker. And he was amazed. The sewage worker is not expected to know English at all. In Gujarat, he would normally speak Gujarati, or in Aurangabad, he would speak Marathi, being a Maharashtra student. So he called that person and asked him that how did he write such a beautiful letter? So he sheepishly said, Sir, I mean, he spoke in Marathi and translating in English. He said, Sir, last week you told us about this Chat GPT. So I told Chat GPT in Marathi to write a letter for leave for one day in English. And it is Chat GPT which has prepared this letter. So you see, Chat GPT now can actually write manuscripts for you. This is a letter is not the only thing that it can write. Last night, I used the chatbot to check whether they could write papers. There was a very recent incident in computer science. Recent means as recent as last 15 days. Professor Donald Knuth, many of you may not have heard this name. Professor Donald Knuth is a living giant. He is now 88 years old. He wrote a series of volumes on art of computer programming. He has done a lot of work with LaTeX, incidentally. He is an absolutely extraordinary person. I submit that most of you would benefit by just looking at Donald Knuth's activities, and you will have umpteen articles, including a Wikipedia review. Now, even at the age of 88, Donald Knuth is very active, even at the age of 88. And there was a recent incident involving work by Professor Donald Kanu. I had read about it while I was visiting Aurangabad, and I got WhatsApp updates from my students and so on. And that incident is well described there. So what I did is I decided to ask ChatGPT about it. I gave the following prompt. Recently, I said, an interesting note was written by Professor Knuth on how Cloud 4.6, which is an anthropic reasoning model, has solved an open problem I have been working on. This is what Knuth says. By the way, he has been working on it for more than 50 years because the art of computer programming came in 70s when I was a young teacher. I then wrote, recently an interesting note was written by Professor Knuth on an open problem he has been working on. There has been some correspondence subsequently regarding work done by others on this problem using cloud. Cloud, by the way, is a code generator. Now, my question to ChatGPT is, can you narrate the entire episode giving what, when, and who wrote? It's unbelievable. In a very short time, ChatGPT responded by giving me a complete write-up. I have prepared a document, a PDF document, to which I am quoting the link. I have put it on my Google Drive and I shared the link. I am suggesting two things. One is the prompt to ChatGPT must be very elaborate to get meaningful answer. The second is the capability of the modern chatbots is so phenomenal that I could get the complete, this entire incident has happened in last 6 days. Luckily, almost all activities have been on the web. People responding to Kanuth's note, people saying, I have done this, I have done that, etc., etc. All of that is available to ChatGPT. And ChatGPT prepared a brilliant narration of the entire episode. Then I gave another prompt to chatbot. Now, this was slightly naughty, as you can say. I said, assume Cloud to be a person called Kluman. I gave a hypothetical name, Kluman, doing actual research. Write a technical paper by him on the support work done for this research. So the reference is, the background is Professor Kanuth's activities and his comments, and the work that was reportedly done by a large number of people using cloud. I am now saying, I am asking ChatGPT as if Mr. Cloude is a Mr. Kluman, hypothetical person doing actual research, write a technical paper by him on the support work done for this research. And this is what chatbot responded with. ChatGPT said, I'm sorry, there is a duplication here. I think I made a mistake in hurriedly copying and pasting. So this is the response from the ChatGPT, which is both very, very interesting and accelerating and simultaneously a disquieting experience. What ChatGPT wrote is, below is a fictional but technically realistic research paper written as if Kluman were a human research collaborator who performed the exploratory computational work that helped Professor Donald Knuth resolve the problem. So please note, ChatGPT has understood what I wanted to say, although I made some spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes in my question, as you can see, it correctly interprets that. And then he says, I have kept the tone similar to a computer science or experimental mathematical paper where the author describes methodology, computational experiments, and the discovery process that supported the final theory. ChatGPT produced a complete paper by this hypothetical person. Please note that he says it's a fictional but technically realistic research paper. By the way, I have copied that paper and made a PDF file. As also the earlier response, I have prepared two PDF files here. So here is a link to these two documents. I have stored both of them on my drive, and I have added the links. I hope the slides, I have not mailed the slides yet, but if I mail it to Professor Ravi and Professor Vineet Chawla, would you be able to share the file with them, Professor
Yeah,
Vineet?
yeah. Sir,
Yeah.
we have a provision for Canvas LMS. We'll post it
Oh,
on
okay,
Canvas
okay, okay. You
LMS.
are recording. But anyway, I'll send you the files.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Now,
Thank you, sir.
this is both exciting and dangerous. If chatbots can actually write research papers of us, how many of us may get tempted to use chatbots to write our papers? So publish and perish kind of thing will publish or perish kind of thing will become a nonsensical thing. We must, I repeat, we must avoid this particular urge to use ChatGPT for such purposes. However, there is a lot that we can use the chatbots for. So here I conclude my talk. First of all, going back to basics. This particular, what should I say, webinar that you are attending is very important because it describes various tools and techniques that you shall use. You must master the tools and techniques. The second part is important. I want you to understand that we must respect deadlines. We must prepare an action plan, a time schedule, when I will write the first draft, when I will do the correction, etc., etc. When I prepare a manuscript, I must ask a collaborator or any friend to read and comment, both on content and on ease of understanding. And I must proofread and correct content. Of all these things, I will tell you deadlines are extremely important. Each journal or each conference has a deadline, and it is not uncommon to find nearer the deadline, a lot of papers get submitted. We must try and avoid that. We must actually respect the deadlines to the extent that we should try and finish it much ahead of the deadline. I am tempted to spend a few minutes on the importance of deadline in a different context altogether. All of us are teachers, right? So we have to set question papers and conduct exams and correct answers, etc., etc. In the IIT system, typically, if I teach a course, I set the question paper, I assess the answers given, and I give the grades. In the final exam, our Senate had made a resolution that if I finish my question paper is conducted, my exam is conducted on a certain day, then within 4 days, I must submit my grades to the academic office. So this was the deadline set. Of course, all of us teachers are smart, so some of us started saying 4 days does not include Friday, Saturday, Sunday because that's a weekend. Because weekend academic office is often closed. But the Senate turned out to be smarter, and in the next Senate meeting, they converted that rule of 4 days to say grades must be submitted within 96 hours. And when somebody said that academic office may be closed, they said during the exam time, academic office shall work on Saturday, Sunday as well. So no nonsense. Now, this deadline, by the way, is taken very seriously. But what is important for all of you is to understand the process that has been built around it. If after 96 hours I do not submit my grade, academic office knows it. Now the grades are submitted online, so they get to know who has not submitted. The academic office informs the dean's office, dean academic. We have a dean academic program, so he is informed the next day morning. Immediately, whatever such number of teachers, maybe out of 300, there could be 10 or 15 teachers who have not submitted their grades in time. The dean's office writes a letter to each of the individual faculty members who have not submitted the grades within the deadline and says, please submit the delayed grades by end of the day. That means beyond 96 hours, actually, I get one extra day, but a strong letter from dean has come. If by the evening the grades are not submitted, the dean's office sends the names of such faculty members to director's office. And next day, director's office calls such teachers. There may be just one or two, uh, hardly any sometimes, for a personal interview. Now, this is not a story, this actually happened with me. I was teaching a course. I was familiar, of course, with the 96 hours rules. I had a set of teaching assistants who had completed the assessment evaluation. But grades had to be given, and for a large scale, the grade allocation, where do you particularly put the passing grade, and where do you put a grade for A, etc., complicated time. I had to take that final decision. There was about 2 or 3 hours of work remaining, otherwise, the grades would have been over. And suddenly, there was an emergency meeting in Hyderabad, followed by a meeting in Delhi, which I had to attend. So, oblivious of the deadline, I went to Hyderabad. From there, I went to Delhi. And when I came back, the next day morning, I go to my office and my assistant tells me, Sir, director office से बुलावा आया है. तो मैंने कहा, अरे director office क्यों? So he said, आपका grade नहीं गया. And then I realized that my grade should have gone one day prior. And but I said, वो डीन साहब का चिट्ठी आता है. हाँ सर, वो कल आ गया था. So that means that extra day also I have lost. So what has happened? So he says, sir, director office called. आपको 11 बजे बुलाया है. 11 o'clock is your patient. Promptly at 11 o'clock I go there. Professor Nag was our director then. By the way, he liked me very much. He actually loved me. He entrusted me with a lot of responsibilities and so on. But that day at 11 o'clock when I walk in, he has a very stern face. He's looking at me. So, Pathak, you know why you have been called? I sheepishly said, yes, sir. So there shall be no cup of tea today. And then he smiled and said, but you can smoke. He was a chain smoker like I was. And I smiled and I sat there. And then he smilingly asked, what happened, Father? So I said, sir, I had to rush to Hyderabad for a meeting. And then I had to go to Delhi to attend the interdepartmental meeting where I'm helping them in their IT thing. And he kept on smiling, says, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know the great work that you are doing. You are helping the industry, you are helping ministries. Very nice. So I felt that he has mellowed down. And suddenly, continuing to smile, he says, I tell you what, why don't you do this full time? I was shocked because the implication was I should leave my job and go to industry, go to ministry or what it is. And my smiling completely stopped and I said, sir, I said, no, I'm serious. These things, what you are doing, are important. So you should do them full time. Because if you have to be a teacher here, you cannot miss a deadline. And then he said again, very mildly but firmly, Patak, never ever forget that whatever else you do in life, whatever great things you contribute, you are a teacher. And the fundamental duty of teacher and the fundamental deadlines associated with those duties cannot be compromised. If you cannot do that, go find some other job. I'm sorry to digress, but my dear friends, this is the respect for deadlines we have learned the hard way. I hope that all of you, while the context may be just submitting our manuscripts properly within the deadline, but the deadline has a general context, and that context I would like you to honor. In some concluding suggestions, I would also like to say, please use artificial intelligence to assist, but not to write papers. Important assistance is easily available. For example, you can ask chatbot to check references. You can ask chatbot to do proof editing. So you can do a whole lot of things easily. But please remember the most important thing. In this age of artificial intelligence, what remains uniquely human is not intelligence, but judgment, values, and responsibility. Never ever compromise with our basic values, never ever compromise with our responsibility, and never ever compromise with the basic human ability to judge properly. I hope you become good judges. I hope you continue to follow great values, and I hope you remain aware of your responsibility. As long as you do all of these, you can use AI to assist in whichever way, in whichever endeavor, including the correct final outcome of any manuscript that you write or any proposal that you write. Last but not the least, plagiarism of any kind is a criminal offense. This is a temptation that happens to many of us because of the publish or perish kind of burden that we carry. Artificial intelligence added one more assistant to plagiarize. I can use AI to generate papers. Please note that it is plagiarism and it must be avoided at all costs. If you notice any instance, say done by a colleague of yours, warn immediately. If a friend of yours is tempted, chastise her or him. Because if you don't, you are not a friend but an enemy. So please remember, a temptation even once can destroy reputation. Please help maintain dignity of our society, dignity of our academic community by avoiding plagiarism, particularly plagiarism using AI. Use artificial intelligence and use all other tools to the best of your abilities to prepare a near perfect manuscript, a near perfect proposal. But the gist of it must come from your own hard work, from your own experience, and from your own thoughts. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think when you are guiding us and you are leading us, we never want to stop. But anyway, the time has to be respected for your own efforts. Thank you very much, sir. I think it's time to listen to participants. Participants can raise their hands if they want to be unmuted, and or you can write your question in the chat actually. Please.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have a class, so I'll take your leave now, sir. Thank you.
We can actually raise our queries for resolution to Professor Phatak Sahab. All participants, you can raise your hands so that we can unmute you. Amit Saraswat ji. Mr. Ramesh, I do not have that right with me. Please unmute Amit Saraswat ji. Ramesh, are you there? Mr. Amit, till then, can you type your query on the chat? Sir, there's a question in the chat. Mr. Abdul Karim.
I read that.
Sir,
For the
sir,
benefit
please.
of all, let me just read it again. It's from Dr. M. Abdul Karim, where he said he is from Exim University. And is there any threshold we need to maintain for AI usage? No, I would submit that the threshold of usage has to be defined by us only. And as long as we use it as a proper assistance, I think there is absolutely no harm in doing everything that you can. But please remember that whatever originality we have must be reflected in whatever work we do later. We can use AI as an assistant. Ritesh Krishna Srivastava has nice thing to say. Uh, some good words about he liked the session.
Sir, testimonial, sir.
And, I cannot help you in achieving the path. That has to be, every path has to be traveled by each one of us alone. So we are alone while we travel the path, but we might use as support, as an encouragement, all the words and all the help from all people around us, including me. We still await the message or query from Mr. Amit.
There is one more from Dr. Kalpesh, sir.
Dr. Kalpesh asks whether I said we can use AI to check references and proofing. Is it valid? It's perfectly valid as long as I so acknowledge it. In my paper, I must acknowledge that I have used Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever to do the following. So as long as I say I have used it to check my references and I used it for proof editing, it is perfectly valid.
Yeah, Mr. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. Amit Saraswat, I'm extremely sorry that I am sitting at the other end. I cannot unmute you. Please type your query in the chat. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, Mr. Amit Saraswat, please type your query in the chat. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, am I audible? Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Gopal Krishnan wants to know whether we can use AI for grammar check. We certainly can. In fact, it's a good question because we are generally poor in grammar. We are not only poor in spelling mistakes, but we are, and this happens, by the way, with all of us, including me. So, fortunately, modern word processing helps me to check uh, typographical errors, but grammatical errors could be very severe. Incidentally, I would like to just add one more thing to this particular point. You know, English is not our mother tongue, most of us at least. And therefore, we often quote this as one of the reasons why whatever we write is written in poor English, either grammatically or. I disagree with that. English may not be our mother tongue, but that is not the main reason why we make mistakes in our writing. The reason why we make mistakes in our writing is we have never seriously written. We have never applied our mind in writing. So those of us who think that because it is English we make mistakes, my humble request is please try to write in your mother tongue, and you will notice that you will make same number of mistakes. And that is because we are often not applying our mind to proper writing, whether in our own mother tongue or whether in any other language. So as long as we learn to do that, then we'll make less and less mistakes. Here's a question from Kalpesh. When we are using AI tools like Grammarly or others to improve the grammar, Turnitin shows it is AI generated content. This is because I am not admitting that I have used AI for doing such a thing. Try to write in your manuscript that you have used such and such AI tool for doing grammar checking. And then you will find that Turnitin will not flag it. The point is not about using AI. The point is about using AI without telling anyone that you have used AI. So as long as you tell very specifically, there should be no issue. All right,
Yeah,
then.
participant,
It is
are
11
there
o'clock.
any more
Is there any more
queries? Yeah. Yeah, there are no more queries. It's
All
time
right.
to thank Professor Phatak Saab heartily. I think it's very motivating listening to him every time, and so assuring listening to him and following his advice that way. We just thank you, sir, and we are grateful for your presence. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Participant, we have next session starting in the evening at 5 o'clock. Please join 15 minutes before so that speaker does not have to wait. So for 5 p.m., please join 15 minutes before. Thank you very much. We'll meet at 4:45 p.m. Thank you. The same link will work for all the days. The same link will work for all the days, mostly.